Gently close your eyes. Do deep breathing. We'll chant Om once together. Synchronize the chanting of Om with your exhalation. Breathe in. सहनाववतु सहनौ भुनक्तु सह वीर्यं करवावहै तेजस्विनावधीतमस्तु मा विद्विषावहै। ओम शांति शांति शांति। Gently open your eyes. We'll chant from verses 66 to 70 of chapter 2. Nasti buddhirayuktasya
नास्ति बुद्धिरयुक्तस्य
nachayuktasya bhavana
न चायुक्तस्य भावना
न चाभावयतः शान्तिः
न चाभावयतः शान्तिः
अशान्तस्य कुतः सुखम्
अशान्तस्य कुतः सुखम्
इन्द्रियाणां हि चरताम्
इन्द्रियाणां हि चरताम्
यन्मनोनुविधीयते
यन्मनोनुविधीयते
तदस्य हरति प्रज्ञाम्
तदस्य हरति प्रज्ञाम्
वायुर्नावमिवाम्भसि
वायुर्नावमिवाम्भसि
तस्माद्यस्य महाबाहो
तस्माद्यस्य महाबाहो
निगृहीतानि सर्वशः
निगृहीतानि सर्वशः
इन्द्रियाणीन्द्रियार्थेभ्यः
इन्द्रियाणीन्द्रियार्थेभ्यः
तस्य प्रज्ञा प्रतिष्ठिता
तस्य प्रज्ञा प्रतिष्ठिता
या निशा सर्वभूतानां
या निशा सर्वभूतानां
तस्यां जागर्ति संयमी
तस्यां जागर्ति संयमी
यस्यां जाग्रति भूतानि
यस्यां जागृति भूतानि
सा निशा पश्यतो मुनेः
सा निशा पश्यतो मुनेः
आपूर्यमाणमचलप्रतिष्ठम्
आपूर्यमाणमचलप्रतिष्ठम्
समुद्रमापः प्रविशन्ति यद्वत्
समुद्रमापः प्रविशन्ति यद्वत्
तद्वत् कामायं प्रविशन्ति सर्वे
तद्वत् कामायं प्रविशन्ति सर्वे
स शान्तिमाप्नोति न कामकामी
स शान्तिमाप्नोति न कामकामी.
Hari Om, and a very good day to all of you. So in the last few verses, we have been seeing the ladder of fall, how your consciousness actually devolves, how it moves down. So he is getting into so much of depth in terms of what actually pulls the consciousness down. Now, you may get a question in your mind as to why spend so many verses on the ladder of fall. It looks like a lot of time is being spent on something which is negative, because another principle which has been given by the great yogis is always focus on the positive. Now you need to understand this very carefully. See, whenever they are talking about being positive, it is with respect to a solution to a problem which you are facing. If you want to solve any issue in life, now you need to approach it positively, because the moment we talk of a solution, there is an inherent positivity about it. The moment you say, when we use the word a problem or an issue, there is an inherent negativity about it. Now, when it comes to these kinds of verses where he is saying how exactly you have moved away from that infinite, how exactly the mind destroys you. You know, when we go to the third chapter, when he talks of Karma Yoga, he will again be giving both sides of it. He'll tell you how to use action to evolve and how the same actions can make you devolve also. Now, why is he doing that? See, whenever there is some negativity, let us say you notice a negativity, and if you don't have a solution for it, that is when the problem compounds. Recognition of a problem is not considered as negative in spirituality. When you say this is what the issue is, with an idea of solving it, then it becomes positive. As I told you, the moment we talk of solution, it is positivity. When we talk of the problem, that is when the focus is on the problem as an end in itself, then there is a lot of negative energy. So in the name of positive thinking, you should not become very unrealistic in life. Like there was a girl who told me, this was many years back, that I want to become a world famous singer. So when she said that, I asked her to sing a song and show me. She meant in the movies, So she sang some song. And even the basic notes she was not able to sing properly. Even the basic tune she was unable to capture. So then she asked me, "Sir, shall I pursue it?" I said, "When you say you will pursue it, how are you going to go about it?" She said, "I will go to top music directors. I will sing and record, and I'll send them to top music directors. I'll meet them, I'll discuss with them." I told her, "No, that will not work." She asked me why. I said, "Because what they are looking for, first you need to have that. Unless and until you develop those skills, if you straight away go and give them your recording, they will reject it." So I explained to her, "See, today you're going out of tune. Are you first aware of that?" She said, "No." I said, "That is not a good sign. If you want to become a singer, first you should develop a good hearing sense. What is in tune, what is out of tune, what is in beat, what is out of beat. All these things you need to learn to appreciate first." So she said, "How do I do that? Because I feel that I'm singing very well. I'm singing like a professional." I said, "You first record your own music, that is your own singing. Just in a cell phone, it's more than enough casual recording. Not to show it to anybody else, but for you to listen to it. To listen to the original, then listen to yours. And then you come back and tell me." So she did that. And then what she said is, "My God, when I heard my own singing after hearing the original, it was horrible." So immediately she said, "So I think I can't become a singer." I said, "See, that choice is up to you. But if you want to become a singer, you should start with this. My idea of telling you that you're singing out of tune was not to discourage you or was not to put you down, but to make you aware of your shortcomings so that you can work on them and fulfill your goal." So here, this is what is positive thinking. That is examining the shortcomings, examining the so-called problem or negativity in order to solve it. When you notice a negativity, anything negative, external or within yourself, when you notice something negative and you just merely indulge in that negativity, you allow your mind to indulge in that negativity without an intention to find a solution, then that is what is called as spiritually negative. So when you see a problem and you don't have a solution for it, you're neither having a solution nor are you seeking a solution, that is when it becomes negative as far as your mind is concerned, because you will get a sense of helplessness. Whereas when you see a problem and you analyze it and find a solution with the intent of finding a solution. See, whenever you have an intention to find a solution, you will get the solution. It's only a question of time, you may be in the wrong path also, but if you are truly seeking a particular answer, now you will know that whatever you're doing is not helping you, so you will keep on finding, you will keep on searching till you find the right answer. So that is extremely positive. So when it is said that think positively, feel positively, It doesn't mean now overlook all your issues and just psych yourself to believe that there is no issue, everything is okay. It doesn't work like that. Deep within you, that is your the deeper layers of your mind, they will be relating to the problem aspect, the negativity aspect only. Supposing you have a particular disease. Now just by telling yourself, I am healthy, and ignoring that disease will not work. That is, if you do it mechanically. Now what we are saying is, understand how this disease has come. Basically, understand how your body is functioning, how you have the self-healing powers. What are the habits which you're having today? Your lifestyle may not be okay. Apparently, that is externally, if you look at all this, they may look negative because you're looking at the wrong lifestyle which you're leading, you're looking at the wrong food habits, then what kinds of inputs you're taking, negative inputs. So all that you're examining, but with the idea of solving. So when you do all that, and then when you say, I am healthy as a positive suggestion, so that you use the power of your mind to heal your body, then it is very positive. It will uplift you, it will actually give you a solution. So in the last few weeks also, I had mentioned when we saw the Charatam, Anuvidhiyate and Harati, the three stages of movement. I told you, when there is a negative thing, now your mind will immediately gravitate towards that. So avoid watching negative news, avoid taking in negative inputs. This was highlighted. Now what does it mean? Avoid taking in negative inputs as an end in itself. If you are making an analysis, or if you are examining the negative in order to find a solution, there is nothing wrong with it. Because even though you are examining the negative, the thought association, the mind is associated with a solution for this problem. That is why I said, like during this pandemic time, read about the immune system. See, that is finding a solution. So you need to differentiate between these two. As a sadhak, you need to learn these two things. First is examining the problem or the negative in order to find a solution, which is what he is doing in the ladder of fall. He is exactly telling you how your mind loses itself, how you lose control and mastery over your own mind, how you devolve. All these aspects he is giving, but not as an end in itself, with the idea of finding a solution. So as he is giving the ladder of fall, he is also embedding. See, if you use the yogic approach and penetrate into these verses, you will find that the solutions are also embedded in all these verses. Like he started off, dhyayato vishayan pumsaha. Casually you start looking at the various sense objects. That's how it starts. Pumsaha means a human being. So that is the embedded solution, but you have a choice. Human being means one who has a choice compared to the other living beings. So the solution is choose the positive. So even as the problem is being examined, the intent is very clear. It is only to find a solution. So this is the first thing which you need to develop. I'm saying as an overall, as a message from this entire ladder of fall. What is it? You should understand that. It will be very useful for your sadhana. So whenever you encounter any problem in life, now examine the problem but seek a solution. See, generally what happens is you like to talk so much about your problem, offload your that weight, which you're feeling inside, that stress, but you're not seeking a solution. That becomes complaining. Sometimes when a person comes with a problem, within a few minutes I know what the problem is, so I get on with solution, but the person is not satisfied. He or she wants to go on explaining about it. Then I tell them, now take your mind away from it. Let's get on with a solution. So don't get stuck with the issue. Don't get stuck with the negativity. This is number one. That is examining the issue or problem with an intent of finding a solution. Then the second aspect which you need to follow is positive thinking. That is choosing those things which will give you more strength. Those are the verses. Actually today we are going to see verse number 68. We are going to start that. You will find it's the other aspect. That is how that is, he'll be explaining the Sthita Prajna directly. So that is the second aspect of your sadhana. So if you develop these two approaches in life, you will evolve very fast. Not only will you evolve spiritually, even in the world, you will progress and you will achieve more success in life. If any one of these two aspects are missing, you will not be able to grow. Just imagine, if the first aspect is missing, only the positive thinking you try and practice, now you will become very unrealistic. Like I gave you that girl's example, You will start fixing unrealistic goals without any reference to what level you are in. Now, if the second aspect is missing, that is, if the positive thinking is missing, then you will never be able to develop that inner strength, the clarity, in order to achieve your goals. So, it is this combination which helps you to progress, whether in the worldly sense or in the spiritual sense. And that is why throughout the Bhagavad Gita, throughout any scripture, the approach used is having these two aspects. So, a group of verses, he will examine the problem, he will examine the so-called negativity, but with an intent of finding a solution. Another group of verses, he will directly be giving positive thoughts to build that inner strength, that capacity to be able to grow, to be able to achieve whatever you want. If you go to any master, a true master will use these two approaches only. Whenever a master says something is wrong, supposing he says what you're doing is wrong, he doesn't mean you are wrong, he means that action is wrong and you need to correct that. He will always give a solution. But if you take it personally, then your mind will slip. It will, the focus of the mind will move from the solution to the problem. The issue will get compounded. So it is very important for you to understand this, because we have been using this principle for the last few verses. But now he is going to shift and go to the positive aspect in verse number 68. So if you don't approach it this way, you will just become very impractical when we move to the positive aspects. See, becoming impractical is a very dangerous thing. It is actually a key block in spirituality. I find people either don't come to spirituality at all because they have their own preconceived notions of what is spirituality. They confuse religion with spirituality. They have wrong concepts. They think spirituality means you will have to leave everything and go away. Due to some preconceived notions, either they don't come at all. This is on one hand. There are another set of people who come to spirituality, but in the name of positive thinking and higher thinking, they lose sight of practicality. God will take care of everything. So they will take it to an extreme point and stop putting in effort. So denial of the problem is not a good thing. If you are mature, if you are strong, first you will accept yourself as you are. You know, the mind feels so good when someone keeps on praising you. Why is that? If somebody points out a fault, now the mind doesn't like it because it's backed by the ego. Actually, it's the ego which doesn't like it. The mind is the instrument which the ego uses. Now, why is it that you don't like when somebody points out a fault? Because of this impractical approach. Actually, when someone points out a fault, as a sadhana, you practice this. Immediately you check up. Is what the other person saying true? A frank, honest analysis, examination, self-examination. If what he's saying is true, then you correct it. That is the positive approach. Just by denying it totally and psyching yourself to believe that everything is fine will not work. After a while, whatever you have suppressed will start coming out in ugly ways. That is why you should never try to impress a teacher. See, when you go to a guru, if you try to impress a guru, what will happen is you will start hiding all your negativities. A real guru will anyway know because he'll have the penetrative capacity, but he is not going to interfere with the student's karma and start advising or guiding. The student has to seek that. So how can you seek guidance? Not merely verbally, but dropping this desire to impress. See, whenever you have a desire to impress, you will start hiding things. You will start hiding all your negativities. You will try to portray yourself as someone whom you are not. So in the Bhagavad Gita, he is analyzing life. He is not leaving any aspect of life. He is not going to hide any aspect and just give a rosy picture. If he is talking of birth, he will also talk of death. Oh, why are you talking of death? Isn't it negative? No, it's a reality of life. How do you be balanced in birth and death? In favorable circumstances and unfavorable circumstances. That is what you need to learn. You know, there is a myth, a misconception that the Garuda Purana should not be kept at home, should not be read. Why? Because it deals with death. They think it is inauspicious. then after a person dies, is he going to read that? After the death, they generally read the Garuda Purana if a person dies. That is not enough. When you are living itself, you need to learn to accept all the aspects of life and become mature and keep raising your consciousness to the infinite. So when you're reading these verses, two things can happen. Either your mind will want to brush it aside, because these verses are actually talking about certain aspects within you. So when you read that, you know, oh, this is what is happening within me. Your ego is unable to accept it. So you want to move away. Either that can happen, or you may get completely involved with the problem, with the negativity, and you may lose your self-confidence. So both these things will not allow you to evolve spiritually. So how do you approach it correctly? This is the way. Approach all these verses with the intent of finding a solution. What is the solution as far as you're concerned? With the intent of transforming your life, with the idea of making your life better. Is this clear? This is very, very important, because we are using the yogic approach to penetrate, into these verses. So when we are penetrating into the verses where he is examining the problem, if you're reading it superficially, no issue. You will just read it and go away. But if you're using the yogic approach, now we are not merely penetrating the verses externally. We are actually going within ourselves. Every part of the verse will start reflecting what is happening within you. So it's very, very important that you understand this principle which I have explained today. Otherwise you lose your confidence. Either you will stop doing your sadhana because it's too much to take. My God, I can't handle this. Or you will start losing your self-confidence. Whereas if you apply this approach which I told you, the more you examine the problem, the more confident you will become, because you have a solution. You're seeking that solution. Okay? So now we'll go to verse number 68. Tasmadhyasya mahabaho
Tasmadhyasya mahabaho
Nigrihitani sarvashah
Nigrihitani sarvashah
Indriyanindriyarthebhyah
Indriyanindriyarthebhyah
Tasya prajna pratisthita
Tasya prajna pratisthita
Tasmat means therefore. He is coming to a conclusion. It is a very, very important word here. See, whenever a master uses the word tasmat, it is very powerful. He is going to say something very powerful. Tasmat, Mahabaho means, O Mahabaho, another name of Arjuna, O mighty armed. Maha means great, mighty. Baho means broad shoulders and mighty arm, because he was an archer, So constantly practicing archery had given him very strong shoulders and arms. And especially Arjuna, because he was a Savyasachi, that is, ambidextrous. He practiced archery to such an extent where he could use both hands with equal effect. So both his arms were very, very strong. That is how he got this name Mahabaho, or mighty armed. See, this shows how much of respect a master has towards the student. See, it's always mutual. Respect, devotion. The students also have a lot of reverence for the master. The master has deep respect for the students. Any master, any person who considers another person as useless, then how can he even teach that person? That attitude itself is one of ego. So Krishna sees Arjuna's potential. That is why he is saying, O Mahabaho, Tasmat, therefore, O Mahabaho, Yasya Nigrihitani Sarvashah Indriyani. One whose senses are totally restrained. Indriyani means senses. Nigrihitani means restrained from the sense objects. Indriyarthebhyah. Indriyarthebhyah means from the sense objects. Such a person, tasya prajna pratishtita. That person's wisdom is established. Prajna. Amazing verse, When we use the yogic approach and penetrate, you will understand the power of this verse. Therefore, O Mahabaho, mighty armed, one's wisdom is established whose senses are totally restrained from the sense objects. So when he says Tasmat, therefore, I told you, whenever a master is using the word Tasmat, you will immediately have to become very alert, because he is going to give a very powerful principle. This doesn't mean you should not be alert otherwise. See, the mind always thinks, understands things in a funny way, I'm saying you should become extra alert. See, I was explaining to you the approach, of examining the problem with the intent of finding a solution. That was very much necessary to get into this verse, because he uses the word tasmat here. Now, if you approach a problem with the intent of finding a solution, and when you have a lot of clarity, when you have a tremendous bhavana, the conclusion which you will come to will be a positive conclusion, will be a life transforming conclusion. When your approach towards an issue is not okay, there also you may come to a conclusion, but that conclusion will not uplift you. So a master will never conclude so easily. He will examine all the aspects and then only he will come to a conclusion. In several verses, Krishna actually uses the word tasmat. But before that, he would have gone into an extensive analysis. He would have seen many aspects, and then finally he will conclude and say, this is what is the truth. So generally, your mind concludes impulsively, something, but a master will never ever conclude anything impulsively. Sometimes when a master tells the student, see, you have this issue, you need to attend to that. You have this quality. Let us say it could be a negative emotion like jealousy, or some people have the habit of telling lies and hiding things. So whenever the master points out, remember one thing. It's not that he notices it at that moment and he's saying. He would have noticed it for quite some time. He'll penetrate and see for how long this quality is there. Is it, have you been carrying it for a long time? Then only he will point out. Because if you continue on that path, that will lead to destruction. So every time a master concludes something, it means a lot of examination, a lot of penetration, it could be in the form of analysis or it could be in the form of feeling, that we'll see. But a lot of examination and penetration has happened. Only then he will conclude. People who are very ignorant about something, they are very, very sure. They are egoistically emphatic. I am telling you, I know what it is, they say. But a person who is wise in a subject, an expert in a subject, he'll be emphatic in certain things, but that emphasis will come, that emphatic nature, conclusion will come after a thorough examination. We have a tendency to give our opinion very fast. A master will never give his or her opinion. That is personal. A master will go by facts. So here when Krishna says, Tasmat, therefore, it is an indication that he is going to conclude something very, very powerful. So what is leading the master to conclude something? What are the ingredients or what are the tools which he has employed in order to come to a conclusion? This is something which as a sadhak you need to know. Because if you apply the same tools in your life, you can also come to very positive conclusions. That is, your decisions, the decisions which you take in life will become very positive and aimed towards your growth. So if you see the last few verses, the ladder of fall which he has been explaining, you will find that there are two tools which he has used. The first is, he has made a thorough logical analysis. This is the first tool. Whenever you want to conclude something, these two tools need to be combined. Number one, a logical analysis, a scientific spirit, a step-by-step approach. In all the verses we saw that, So you think casually, you will develop sangaha, attachment, and then that is one step, and then sangaha will lead to kamaha, uncontrolled desire. That will lead to various modifications like anger and other negative emotions, and like that, step by step he has gone. He never jumped steps. He never picked up something out of context. So this is the first tool which you need to develop if you want to sharpen your decision making skills. That is, if you want to ensure that your decisions are effective. See, everyone decides. It is because you decide that you are able to do some action. See, right now if you're watching this, it is because you have decided to watch. So everyone in life decides, but is that decision effective or not? How do you determine? It is by the result. Is that whatever decisions you're taking, those decisions, are they uplifting you or are they pulling you down? So how do we ensure that every decision which you take is extremely effective in your life? Whether it is a decision in your financial, with respect to your finance, whether is it with respect to your business, with respect to your home, with respect to your children, with respect to your spouse, whatever be the area, it does not matter. But how do you ensure that your decisions are effective? It is by when you penetrate into this word, tasmat, you get a hang of how a master approaches life, how a master decides, what are the principles which he is using to decide. So you need to absorb those principles. So the first one is logical analysis, logical thinking, not going by superstition, not going by mere beliefs, that is blind beliefs. In one of the sessions, I had mentioned about the 4 stages. That is when you're just vacantly gazing, mechanical life, and then the age of when you're having a lot of superstitious beliefs, and then logical thinking. So I had explained that a few discourses back, so that it will be easy for you to absorb the deeper messages in this verse. So if you want your decisions to be more effective, number 1, logical analysis. This is what he has used. Number 2, the second tool which he has used, which is also equally important, is that the deep feeling or bhavana with which he approached the whole thing. Whenever a person does logical analysis, what happens is he or she becomes very dry. Emotions are never used. Emotions are a very powerful tool. When your bhavana is perfect, your wisdom actually deepens, your understanding deepens. See, there are 2 ways of understanding anything. One is through logic, other is through emotions. Now, which one is superior? See, first of all, what do I mean by understanding through emotions? Now, if you take a mother who has given birth to a baby, now she is able to understand the baby fully. When the baby cries, I've seen many mothers, they know whether the baby is crying for food, or whether the baby is crying for sleep, or whether the baby is just frustrated a little bit, that is become a little cranky for some reason. All these things the mother clearly is able to understand, not based on logic, but simply based on love. When she identifies with the baby, that motherly instinct, when she identifies fully, her understanding of the behavior of the baby is almost perfect. If you use logic there, you will not be able to understand. I've seen some fathers, whenever the baby cries, they think, we have to now simply give the baby food. The mother says, no, he's crying because he wants sleep. So sometimes the fathers ask, the husbands ask the wife, how do you know this? She is not able to explain. Because the tool there is the emotions, identification, that love, So, understanding comes through these 2 channels. Whenever you think logically in certain aspects, you can gain knowledge, you can understand. Whenever you feel, there are many things in life which you can only feel and understand, not think and understand. You cannot understand love by using logic. So these two aspects have to be combined in your life if you want your decision making to be more effective. So this is what you can see. On one hand, he has used amazing logic. Step by step he has approached. When we used the yogic approach and penetrated, how inspiring it was, how one thing leads to the other and how to reverse it. All these things we saw. But in and through all that, there is so much of emotion that the bhavana is so powerful. He is not telling this in a dry way. I'm sure you would have experienced that, every Sunday. It is not mere points, just the points which are being given. They are being given with so much of bhavana, and that is why when you hear them, that energy immediately goes and does something within you. You get inspired. So if the same things were said in a dry way, without any inspiration, without any bhavana, it will not have this effect. So tasmat, therefore, means the conclusion which he has arrived at by using these two tools. Logical thinking, number one, and the deep bhavana, the emotion. See, these are the two aspects of life. Now, if you just focus on one aspect, your personality will become lopsided. They talk of the right brain and left brain. They say left brain relates to logic, right brain relates to emotions and all this. Now, as far as the yogic science is concerned, you need to be balanced. This is the very concept of Ardhanarishwara. Half Shiva and half Parvati, half Shakti. They have depicted, they've depicted Shiva, they've depicted Shakti, Parvati. And then there is this Ardhanarishwara where half it is male and half female. Everybody has both male and female aspects within. No one is 100% male or 100% female. Even medically, we have both the hormones, It is a question of which is a little more and which is a little less. The same thing is applicable at the spiritual level also. You have both logic and the capacity to feel. If you focus only on logic, you will become like a machine. Your decisions will not be effective. If you focus only on emotions or feelings, then what will happen is, there is always a danger. Again, your decisions will not be effective. You may miss many, data, that is facts, and you may come to erroneous conclusions just based on your fears and all that. The emotions will just take over. So you need to combine these two whenever you want to decide something. The scientific approach, which is the logic, the artistic approach, which is the feelings. See, the spiritual energy, as it rises, there is this energy center here called Agnya Chakra. Now, who is the, for each chakra means it is an energy center, that which is connected with the higher dimensions. Now, each chakra, they say that a particular god is ruling that chakra. It's all the energy, what kind of energy can be activated through the chakra. When it comes to the third eye, the Agnya Chakra, they say it is the Ardhanarishwara, Shiva Shakti. The Shiva and Shakti actually are united and they are balanced. Who is Shiva within you? The logical aspect. Who is Shakti within you? The emotional aspect. Both are very, very powerful. There is an eternal conflict. Which is more superior? Logic or emotions? Logical people think emotions are superior. Logical people think logic is superior. And emotional people think that emotions are superior. Both are incorrect. It is a balance between the logic and emotions which gives you that strength, which gives you that clarity. So, in life you find science is there, and in life you find arts is also there. Now, if you take away science, then there will be no method, in whatever we are doing, if you take away the scientific approach. Similarly, if you take away arts, now life will have no taste. Imagine, we take away, all the music, dance, all forms of arts are taken off, just for argument's sake. Then the whole world will become very dry. If you see nature is both scientific and artistic. If you just see a sunrise, for example, there is a science part to it. There is a heat, there is light, there is a distance between the earth and the sun, and the distance is, there is a particular distance, and that is why you see the sun rising in the east. So much of science is involved, but at the same time there is the artistic aspect also. There is a beauty. It is the artistic aspect which will inspire you. The scientific aspect will give you facts. The artistic aspect will inspire you. So certain things can be understood artistically only. That is predominantly. Certain things can be understood scientifically only. So if you mix up these two things, if you are scientific in every area of your life, you will get into trouble. You cannot believe, you cannot have faith in anyone also. If you say, I am going to be 100% logical now, so what do? Then you should start from your birth. You should ask your parents, first prove to me that you both are my parents. Come on, let's go for a DNA test. Will you do that? How is it that you have accepted that your parents are your parents? Scientifically? Logically? It's based on emotions. Similarly, where you have to think logically, if you start using emotions, again your decision will become impulsive. So whenever you use only logic without any emotions, your decisions will not be effective. They will not have that power. They will be very dry. You will miss out so many aspects. Like some parents who force their children to take up a particular career because they'll just logically analyze and say that if you do this course, you will get a job, you will get so much money, this will happen, all that they say. But then they miss out, since there is no emotions, they miss out on what the nature of the child is. Will that child enjoy doing this? Is it the child's swadharma? All those aspects the parents will miss. Whereas the moment they bring in that unconditional love, then they will be able to feel what the child is feeling. No, my child will not enjoy doing this. I can clearly feel this. So let me guide my child to take up a field which it will enjoy so much, he or she will enjoy. So from this moment onwards, start developing both these aspects when it comes to your life. Where you need to feel, start feeling. Where you need to think, start thinking. We always do the reverse. And remember, thinking also helps you to understand something. Feeling also equally helps you to understand something. You intuitively understand a few things, There is a difference between being impulsive and being intuitive. Intuition is a deep perception. So when you go to a master, you will find that the master is very logical, scientific when it comes to explaining the knowledge. But you will also find that when a master says something, it may be the same statement which you may have read elsewhere also. But when he says it, that inspires you. Why? Because he'll be giving it with so much of bhavana. So that is why it is said that Jnana Yoga and Bhakti Yoga should always go together. Jnana and Bhakti. It has never been prescribed as a separate path, these things. Do I need to follow Jnana Yoga or Bhakti Yoga? It has never been said like that. In the same Bhagavad Gita, you find that he'll be talking about Jnana, he'll be talking about Bhakti, Karma, Dhyana, that is meditation, everything he's covering. Why? Because life itself has all these facets. You cannot afford to neglect one and give more, that is undue importance to another. A person who feels whatever he thinks and a person who thinks whatever he feels, he will only be able to get that true understanding or true wisdom. Your feeling should support your thinking and your thinking should support your feeling. Thinking gives you the direction. It ensures that you don't become blind, but feeling ensures that you don't become dry. We are not computers. Even though I may give the example of a computer and say your body is like a computer or mind is like a computer, actually that is only for that one particular aspect we are using that example. So if you take a plastic rose, now logically speaking, it has everything, the color of the rose, it's exactly looking like a rose, let us say. The color is perfect, the stem is perfect, an exact replica of a rose. But that replica can never equal an actual rose. Why? Because even though all the aspects of the rose are there, the fragrance will be missing. The natural fragrance, that freshness, that life will be missing. That is what the emotions, the bhavana gives you. So, as a sadhana, this tip I am giving you, you can practice this. Take up the various aspects of your life and just examine your approach in those aspects. Are you approaching it logically, and are you having the necessary emotions in that field? For example, we'll take something like career. You're working in your office. Are you approaching it very logically? Is your approach structured? Are you disciplined? Have you analyzed and what are the skills required? Are you putting in efforts to enhance your skills? Are you putting in efforts to organize your work in a structured way? This is all the logical aspect. That is not enough. Every day when you're following that system which you have set logically, are you working with passion? Are you looking forward to your work? And are you completing your tasks? That is something which you need to examine. So if you're doing both, then you will definitely be successful in your work. Similarly, you take your family, your relationship with your spouse, relationship with your children. Have I planned things in a logical way? Like supposing you want to spend time with your spouse, so you fix a time. Fix a time means not in a corporatish way, like between 7 and 8 we'll spend time. It's not like that. Basically, in a week, because work is there, all this there, you decide, okay, let us see this movie together, or let us spend some time. Now this is the logical aspect. You're seeing the practicality and you're allotting some time. But during that time, are you fully there? Is your heart there? Are you approaching it with a lot of love and passion? Or are you sitting there and thinking about your office or something else? Are you doing it in a dry way, mechanical way? You need to have both. So, like this, you find out in every area of your life, even the sadhana which is being suggested, the yoga sankirtan, the morning exercises, the kriyas, every sadhana which has been given, first structure your day properly with the sadhana. That is the logical part. Understand the value of it. Number 2, are you doing it with that excitement? Oh, today morning, as soon as, when you wake up, today is another day. So let me do the yoga sankirtan sadhana. Is that the spirit, or has it become mechanical, dry? Every Sunday, you should bring that feeling. You have the choice. See, as a human being, you have the choice to consciously bring in a logical approach. You also have the choice to consciously bring an emotional approach. So a yogi has developed both these aspects, and he uses both these aspects according to the situation. Where emotions are required, he uses emotions. Where logic is required, he uses logic. The proportion is what you need to determine. Both are required. In certain cases, you require more of logic. In certain cases, you require more of emotions. This wisdom gives you that clarity to determine that proportion. Okay? So, we will go into the further depth of this verse next week. Just the word tasmat itself is so inspiring. If you just understand the depth of that word, when Krishna is uttering tasmat, therefore, how much he is feeling, how much he has gained clarity through logic and feeling. Just feel it, that bhavana, that energy. Therefore, do this, he says. Therefore, this is the conclusion. So whenever a master expresses himself, it is so powerful because he has learnt to combine the thinking and emotions within him. The Shiva and Shakti are always in balance for a yogi. You will never find a yogi losing himself in emotions or in logic also. He will feel intensely. He will also be able to analyze very, very logically. That is why if a scientist goes to a true yogi, a true master, he will find the master very interesting because the master can immediately switch and talk in a very logical, scientific way. But if an artist approaches a master, again he will feel very comfortable with the master because this master can immediately switch and function in an emotional way, in an artistic way. So as sadhaks, you should try to achieve this. This is balancing the male and female energies within you. This is balancing the thinking and emotions within you at the gross level. Now, as we keep on growing, you will have to balance these same energies at subtle levels in spirituality. As and when the context comes, I'll keep revealing that. So it is very, very symbolic. The Ardhanarishvara, Shiva and Shakti are merged here. And that is when the third eye opens, the third eye of wisdom, Jnana Chakshu. The eye of wisdom opens within you. So you get the true understanding of life only when these two energies within you are balanced. When there is an imbalance between these two aspects within you, between the logic and emotions, your understanding will not be deep. So with this, we will stop here today. Now we will do the meditation. Gently close your eyes. Do deep breathing. Inhale fully and exhale completely. With every breath, I am becoming very relaxed. With every breath, I'm going deeper and deeper into myself. Beyond this body, beyond the various emotions and thoughts, lies my essential self, the supreme divine aspect. I am not this body. I am not this mind. I am not this intellect. I am the Supreme Self. I have the two aspects within me, the logical analysis and the emotions and feelings. I choose to balance both these aspects within me. I am Swayam Prakashit, self-illuminating. Offer your gratitude to God Supreme. Offer your gratitude to your Guru and all the holy masters. Slowly come back. Wriggle your fingers, your toes. Rub your palms together to create a warmth. Cup your eyes with your palms. Gently rub your eyes, cheeks, forehead, top of the head, back of the head and neck. Slowly open your eyes. Welcome back. So these are the two aspects within you. The logical aspect, the scientific aspect, and the emotional aspect, the artistic aspect within you. So if you want to become yogis, you need to master both these aspects. That is what is symbolized, On one hand, Shiva is meditating. In another form, he is Rudra, means very, very powerful when it comes to destroying negativities. On the other hand, he is Nataraja, dancing, that artistry. Same thing you'll find even with Lord Narayana, If you take the avatar of Lord Krishna, how he dealt with his opponents, he was very, very logical in his approach. But when it came to music, playing the flute, dancing, he was very, very artistic. So you find all the great masters, they had both these aspects. So think about this and add this element of expression. The sadhana of expression is something which you need to practice. Learn to express anything positive which you feel in life itself, in general. No need to impress anyone. It is a question of learning and growing. And remember, the relationship between a student and a master is always personal. A master never gives general guidance to everyone, even though he may be talking to everyone simultaneously, as I said, but he will connect with each one individually also. Express in your way and receive the healing, necessary specific healing energy which will transform you. And a master is there in your life not to change your to change your nature and make you into someone else. He is there to guide you in your way, in your unique way. He respects you as a unique expression of the infinite. So he wants to encourage that, so that you express in your unique way and gain this wisdom, the healing, the guidance, and become one with the infinite. Okay? So thank you very much. We'll meet next week. Hari Om.